Right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Hey, first off, good morning. Thanks for coming by for this talk. My name is Mike Mace. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for a company called Archon Technologies, or ID Technologies, specifically the Archon division. We're a CACI-owned company. What we're going to talk about a little bit today is really centered around kind of these topics. One, just to kind of level set so you know who we are, so I'm not just some guy up here talking, kind of throwing words out there that may or may not be relevant. We'll talk through briefly just what commercial solutions for classified is, just to help level set for the group. And then we're going to talk about specifically mobile threats to the CSfC environment, right? Finally, we'll transition from there on how to mitigate some of those threats and some of the technologies that live inside of our capabilities. And then finally, we'll kind of, if we have time, we'll talk briefly about maybe some future areas that CSfC may be relevant. So real quick, who are we at ID Technologies? We are two things. We are a trusted integrator as well as a product company. All right, so we have a very different perspective than a lot of folks out there in the sense that we have a lot of experience in deploying and operating CSfC environments while simultaneously building purpose-built hardware and software to support those type of environments as well. We do have experience doing this. We have multiple registrations. We have about 10,000 laptops currently deployed across multiple customers. And frankly, we've tried to do this from a little bit different perspective. What we've tried to do is kind of bring a commercial approach to commercial solutions for classified. And what we mean by that is not just from gluing individual components together, but from our approach on how we deploy it, as well as how we operate and maintain it after day zero, frankly. We do have multiple active registrations. We're more than willing to talk about those, not necessarily in this forum, for basically every capability package that exists inside of the portfolio. And we have been recognized by both the government and industry for kind of our expertise in this space. So at a high level, that's kind of who we are. And answer the first question kind of for the group is, what is CSfC? And there's a lot of words on this slide. Please don't read them all, because I'm going to cut this down to about one sentence. The CSfC program is centered around using commercial technology to either transport or protect data, classified data at rest. That is what CSfC says in that whole paragraph. It is the guidance that outlines how to use commercial technologies to protect classified information. All right. So the crux of this talk is centered around kind of remote work and the cybersecurity threats that brings to the classified space, right? Everybody talks a lot in the CSfC market about turning CSfC on, getting to day zero, getting through registration, getting through ATO. What often doesn't get talked about is is how you operate and maintain it after day zero, right? So certain threats that exist kind of to this space that we're now exposing it to is mobile and remote work in nature creates a threat, all right? There's a survey that's out there that somebody did in 2019. I'm more than willing to share the resource. But basically what it said is about 24% of enterprise mobile devices, right, remote from work systems, are prone to compromise. And they centered this survey around three core topics, right? The first one was around, frankly, just missing updates and patches, right? Because you're disconnected, because you're mobile systems tend to be behind in patching, updates, software release versions. You can go on and on about things in that space. The next piece to this is that as you start to work in a remote work environment, your attack surface extends significantly. And it extends more associated with the fact that you're now working in multiple places, coffee shops, hotels, your houses, right? Places, frankly, that don't have the best security in place to start with, and gives attackers an avenue to approach that is highly effective. A great topic around this is splash page injections. Hotels are continuously being hit this way. And frankly, if you connect to a hotel Wi-Fi, there is a threat that exists off the splash page that you use to use Wi-Fi, right? And people don't talk a lot about it because we just have to trust it because it's what we have. And then finally, CSfC in nature is complex, right? When you start talking about doing this at scale with thousands of devices, right, it is a complex configuration that humans traditionally have always had to do. And through humans doing that, they obviously make mistakes. And the greatest threat to in almost all of our networks is misconfiguration at the end of the day, right? It's human error. Whether that's opening a phishing email, messing up an access list line, changing an encryption algorithm on a VPN connection, that is the easiest path vector for attack, right? In the mobile space and remote work, especially when it comes to classified, physical security is no longer enough, right? Traditionally speaking, we talked about classified remote work from home. We're talking about putting systems in a safe, storing a Type 1 encryptor, those type of things. In the mobile workforce of today, right, physical security is not enough, right? There has to be things built into the solution that protect the solution from the attacks that you're going to face in the environment. And then finally, like I kind of alluded to a little bit before, a unique remote workforce exposes you to unique vulnerabilities, right? And they're not unique in the sense of, these aren't seen in the commercial industry. These aren't seen by, Fortune 500 companies every day. But they are unique in the sense that's the first time the classified environment has been exposed to these type of threats, all right? So what do we do to help solve some of those problems, right? And the first thing that I always tell people is that most of the portfolio that exists inside of commercial solutions for classified were products built to do something else. They weren't necessarily built to do CSfC out the gate, right? They were a firewall that a company built to be a firewall. It was a mobile operating system that was built to be a commercial operating system that we've had to bolt on controls and configuration pieces to help manage and protect those devices. And what we've seen is that in the CSfC space specifically, there's been nothing built to protect against CSfC-specific vulnerabilities. All right? So what we've tried to do inside of our portfolio is build things from the ground up to do CSfC. And with regards to mobile threats, I kind of hit on kind of three core pieces that we believe is essential to protecting a mobile device in that type of environment. All right? We talk a little bit about security, right? The first thing that the NSA put in place that required you to help protect you from the untrusted network was this requirement for a retransmission device. And what you've seen with the retransmission device traditionally is companies they buy something like a TP link off of Amazon for, built in Taiwan as an example. But we don't understand supply chain. We don't necessarily know where it came from. We don't know who the developers are building the code, right? So the first thing that somebody had to do was actually build a product that was built and designed to be a retransmission device, met what the NSA asked industry to do, and then integrate that into systems where, frankly, the user doesn't have to worry about it, right? So through that, we built a product that we call Archon Sidearm. It is our answer to that solution at the end of the day. The second piece of this for mobile devices is splash page attacks. It is a huge problem across the board, right? To include controls that are directly written inside of each capability package to help minimize splash page attack risk. Some of those examples are the end user device itself, meaning the laptop or the phone, cannot interact with the untrusted network environment, right? So somebody had to develop a way to interface with the splash page but not expose the EUD to risk, right? Inside of, again, some of our solutions, what we've done is we actually do all the rendering of the splash page and all the code execution actually on the retransmission device and give nothing more than a screen scrape to the user environment. And what that allows users to do is interact with that page without exposing the EUD itself to the risk of the exploit. The next piece to this is a little bit kind of under the hood. And full disclosure to the group, I am not an expert in this technology. I will happily put you in contact with people who are an expert in that technology. But one of the things that we've done for our operating system is we've leveraged a technology from Red Hat called RPM OS Tree. And what RPM OS Tree allows you to do, which is really interesting, is it allows you to essentially take a snapshot of what write means and what write looks like on an end user device. All right? What that means is a couple things. One, it guarantees every laptop is configured at a certain way all the way down to the binary level of the system itself. RPM OS Tree also inherently makes the file system itself primarily immutable and unwritable. Right? So what that means is in the most common attack vector for a Linux-based system is to replace a binary with another compromised binary. RPM OS Tree eliminates the option to do that. And in the event that that does happen, when that machine reboots and calls back into what they call the OS tree says, this is wrong, and will either brick the system, depending on what's been changed, or it'll automatically convert the system back to its original state with the correct binaries on it. And it won't allow it to actually connect to the network until that process has happened. Right? The second piece of that is on top of that, on top of the higher layer, we've added in all the virtual machine layer that carries all the VPN components. We took that same technology and brought that to that layer as well. So what that means is each one of those VMs is actually an immutable ISO image. Again, in the event that you connect, let's say there is a splash page attack that somehow gets through and compromises the network VM, once again, any binary changes, any file system changes, anything getting written to a directory that is not authorized, that directory then, once again, that virtual machine will either stop working instantly or it will convert back to its original state automatically. All right? And as we all know, no one of these components fixes any single problem I discussed earlier. It's about bringing in a layered approach and having kind of some thought process around what the actual threat is. Another piece to this is just frankly enterprise IT management, right? How do I know every computer is configured the same way? How do I know every computer or every system's running a correct binaries as an example, the correct images, correct version numbers, right? In the traditional Linux model with package management, you had what they called enterprise drift that would happen eventually, where if you looked at every single machine, the exact same package, there may be different versions running on any given workstation. Again, through RPM OS tree, it helps eliminate that requirement as well, but also through the management plane, you get to say what every single machine looks like all the time, right? So you know every binary that's running on every machine you have at any given time, and the only way you can change that is by changing the master template, essentially, inside of OS tree, or changing things to the OS tree. And then finally, to kind of hit to the last bullet, standardization of approach helps you secure your environment, right? It allows you to bring things like enterprise automation to mitigate user configuration errors. It allows you to do those type of functions to help protect the system itself, which, at least for us, we believe is critically important to eventually protecting the gateways, which are going to essentially touch the classified environments directly after that, all right? And I was trying to speak for about 14 minutes, and it looks like I hit it right on the head about 13:55. So with that, I'm actually going to open it up to questions. Please fire away. Let me know what you think. If you think I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I own the product line. I'd like to fix it if I am. So I'd like to open it up. Any questions? Yes, sir. So the question was, for the retransmission device itself, or Archon sidearm, where does that live inside of the network stack, right? So the short answer to that is, inside of a common CSfC architecture, the signal flow that exists for a mobile access device on an untrusted network is as follows, basically. You have a retransmission device that's designed to separate your end-user device from the untrusted network. The only function it basically performs in reality is it performs NAT. It has a stateful firewall that essentially allows IPsec traffic and appropriate traffic in and out. And then it does kind of your traditional kind of security configuration and kind of user configuration that you would expect. It also does take over-the-air updates from the back-end infrastructure as well, so you can do configuration management of that device. After that retransmission device, it essentially hands to what's often now called the outer VPN component, which is the first layer of encryption in the CSfC build. That essentially hands to an inner VPN, which then essentially hands to what we call the user space, which is where the user interfaces with their classified environment. So, is that what you're looking for? Great. Yes, sir. Yes. So the question was, if the VMs that run on top of the machine, are those production VMs? So that signal flow that I just actually outlined, there is essentially a virtual machine that performs each one of those functions. Yeah, so inside of the CSfC space, there are multiple organizations that do provide mills. For us, for our specific product line, we are in the process. We start LBSA here at roughly the beginning of the year for our approach. We also work with other companies such as Garrison, Force Points around here. We've worked with the Secure View office before. And what we try to work with companies to do, frankly, is we just want to be the expert in CSfC for an enterprise type deployment. If there's a different option that's right for the customer, right for the government, our main piece in this is we want to make sure that gateway and those end user nodes are as protected as much as they can be. Any other questions? All right. So what I'll do is I think they're distributing the slides potentially to people that are looking for them. If you have more questions, want to get more detail, want to get under the hood and have discussions about how things work at a more technical level, our booth, I believe, is 810. It's roughly right over here on the corner. Swing by, talk to the team. And like I said, if you think I'm wrong, please come tell me, because I own the product, I own the roadmap, so I have influence over the development path. So like I said, I love to hear other people's opinions. Let me know how I can help, and thanks for your guys' time.